The summer solstice is a missed opportunity, and its failures could be a sign of Bungie's shortcomings in the future. Now, I'm not saying that the summer solstice is bad. Far from it. When compared to other events, it isn't that bad. In concept, upgrading armor from green to masterwork is a good one, and in practice, yes, a bit grindy, but overall, it is enjoyable just to play with friends, to go around and mess around and just upgrade this armor for a bit. And it gives a player something to do for in the next coming month before Forsaken, giving us a little bit of content to eat through, so that we're just not bored of our minds, just doing like the same old stuff we've always been doing. And I think I think for Bungie to do that is a really good idea because most of the time whenever there's a DLC drop, there's always this massive gap of just people just being bored and just wanting and waiting for this new DLC, just for new content to come into the game. And I feel like the Summer Solstice did fix that, a little bit of that, giving us something to do at least. I also give mad props to the live team for making all this content in such little time, especially with Forsaken coming up, meaning that majority of the studio will be working on making the DLC as smooth as possible. So to make so much content in very little time, I would say in like, I don't know, 4 to 5 months is pretty good, especially with the live team being so small. Now, because of that fact, I do excuse Summer Solstice for all the problems I will be mentioning, outside of like 2 points I'll be making around the Summer Solstice and Eververse, because that problem isn't really that excusable. Like, come on Bungie, just stop selling us shit. Just put it into the game's loot table and not behind a paywall. Like, that would be very nice, Bungie. Thank you. However, that doesn't mean that I won't be mentioning the problems and missed opportunities throughout this event's experience, because not explicitly outlining the good and bad of this event can and will lead to Bungie misunderstanding what aspects of this event they should replicate, leading to the problems seen in the event slowly festering in further content, until we get another Destiny 2. Which is a part of history that I would love not to repeat. I hope you guys would not want to repeat it either, but I know I would hate to repeat Destiny 2. So to detail what is good and what isn't good, I will be splitting this video into 2 sections, the Redux missions and everything else. These 2 sections will then be split into things I think are great and should be replicated, things that are good in concept but are poorly implemented, and things I do not like and shouldn't be replicated in any facet. Now, with that groundwork out of the way, let's get started with the first section of the video. The Redux missions. How they are such a blessing, but such a curse. They are missions that had so much potential for what they could offer, but sadly only offered a fraction of its potential. It just breaks my heart to see these missions being wasted. The Redux missions are a chance for Bungie to right their wrongs of the past year, showing the community that they have evolved and changed in the wake of such a catastrophic failure. This event was the last chance for Bungie to gain back, and this was the chance for Bungie to take action, to show us yes, they have actually changed, not just say it. So it annoys me when I see that these Redux missions are just the same missions but harder, with a little bit of something different, which in my opinion is the wrong way to treat this opportunity. These missions should have shown us that Bungie has had a positive change to their approach when designing missions, showing us that these Redux missions aren't just kill all enemies in the room and then move on to the next one. These missions should have changed the structure of missions entirely. Like, instead of having shooter rooms, maybe some puzzles, maybe have some more jumping puzzles, just anything. There's something that is mentally challenging, something that isn't just shoot things, maybe something that actually has some value to it, something that actually is a little more different. Maybe they could have done that. Maybe have encounters that are more engaging. Maybe for this encounter you unlock the bridge. Make it so that you shoot the control panel, or maybe the Cabal fly over and shoot the bridge while you're on it, forcing you to run past the enemies that you are fighting on the bridge as fast as you can, so that you don't fall into the abyss. Also, if you do this, make it so the enemies run and don't just stand there and shoot you. Like, make it doable, please. Like, I've seen stuff where like you are like trying to do something different, but like just do it so wrong, and the enemies are just stand like you're doing like running away from something, and the enemies are standing there shooting you. Just make something a little more doable, and don't make it like that kind of challenging. This idea also shows in-game how brutal and willing the Cabal are to gain victory, even if it means killing their own kind. It would just add to the Cabal, giving them some real physical examples of the Cabal being brutal. As you know, if you look into the lore and the Grimoire, all that kind of stuff, you see so many examples of the Cabal just being just utter dicks, brutals, just having no respect for themselves or for like any lives or any of that kind of stuff. But like, we rarely see that in game, and I think like something like that, and having those examples in game can really add to the universe, really expand it, because again, having like going to a room and shooting something, you don't really see how brutal it could ball are. But having those kind of like cinematic moments, like saying, like as I said, for the bridge exploding or being shot down, and then all the Cabal on it, like being forced, like all the Cabal just sacrificing all the Cabal on the bridge. Like I feel like that can really add to the universe, really just expand. And I think you can't really expand the universe in that kind of way if you're just going around shooting enemies constantly. The boss encounters in these missions, how do I say this, are not the best. Most of them are just bullet sponges of the same bosses we've seen 1,000 times. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of sick of seeing the same gladiator over like 1,000 times. And what makes it worse is that these bosses bring nothing new at all. And I just don't understand why Bungie don't implement new mechanics, like new mechanics, extra mechanics, any kind of new mechanics for these bosses. They're not that hard to think of. Like I could probably do one right now. Okay, one thing they could have done for the 1 AU, I don't know how it's called, the 1 AU mission, is at the part just before you get shot through the pipe, instead of having bullet sponges there blocking the pipe, you could have had a solar shield on one of the bosses and made them so that you can only damage him by using solar orbs that charge at like a specific location. So if you wanted to break the shield and do damage to them, you would have to go run around, find an empty orb, and go in and charge it. Once you got the charge, just go throw it at him, and you kill him and do some damage. And you could do something like that. And like I know that wasn't even that good of an encounter, but that kind of stuff, but there's that kind of extra stuff where that extra step before you can go and damage him. There's something new. There's something else to do it, so the boss fights aren't just shoot him in the head and he die. Just make them a little bit different. It's not that hard, Bungie. I just want something different, Bungie. Just please, it's just something different. And I see in some of the missions and some of the stuff you do try doing that. And like not on these Redux missions, except for like 1 or 2 things, but in like some of the other missions, out of other content, I see that you try and doing it, and I give you props, but like it's just implemented poorly. Like it just sucks, man. And I just want something new, Bungie. Like Bungie, you don't even have to think of any new mechanics. Just give me something. Just give me some of the old mechanics from Destiny 1. Just reuse some of those old mechanics. Like somebody wants an old boss fight. Like honestly, no one will care. You can I know people care about when you're reusing exotics, but no one will care about reusing mechanics at start. If you start, if you just from like the next day you release content, and it's just like have old mechanics in it, I don't think anyone would care, because one, it's new content, and it would be it would just be a relief compared to all the other stuff. Because honestly, you just need all the old stuff is getting really repetitive, and you just really need mechanics. You don't even need to think of any new ones. You could just use all the old stuff, because honestly, it's probably best if you recycle all the old content from Destiny 1 that is being used, because all those like really good mechanics you had in Destiny 1 are just gonna be sitting there, and they're just not being used. No one barely anyone plays Destiny 1. I know that on like Xbox 360 and PS4 and all that, there's still a community there, but like no one really plays that much anymore. And I feel like the community wouldn't care if you recycled some of the old stuff, and I think that would be a great idea, because it at least just gives some diversity to the boss fights, and I think most people wouldn't care. Now, I'm not saying that every single boss fight needs to be filled with old mechanics, because after a while that will get extremely old and pretty much be exactly like how we get Psy at this when we see a sponge boss, and just doing that will like make it seem like you're running out of ideas. So all you need to do is just sprinkle them throughout the campaign, sprinkle them out through patrol missions, through patrols and that kind of stuff, and lost sectors. Just give us some diversity with bosses. Give us just spice things up, really. Like that's all we want. We just want boss fights to actually be a little bit different. However, I do think all boss encounters in Summer Solstice should have had some kind of mechanic. It could have been new or old. It doesn't matter. It can be anything outside of shooty, because this event needed to show the community that Bungie has changed, and the fact that there's only one newish mechanic in like any of the boss fights is kind of sad. Now, why do you think Bungie hasn't implemented any boss fight mechanics into the Summer Solstice missions? Now, the first reason that comes to my head when hearing that question is the one I kind of mentioned before, which is that the live team didn't have enough manpower to implement any of these mechanics, which does make sense, and I'm willing to willing to come to that conclusion, because I choose to believe the best in people. Plus, the live team was also working on Whisper of the Worm at the time, so that does kind of make sense, because making a quest that awesome would take a lot of time. The other option is that Bungie has no clue what they're doing when designing these new missions, and the new Forsaken campaign is going to be terrible. And that's what I mean by this event being a sign for future content. Because if this event shows no massive improvement, then why should we trust the next content drop? That will force us to pay up to $80 just to play, in specific examples if you don't have the actual game or the DLC. Now, if the second option is the case, then I'll give examples of encounters that worked, encounters that were good in concept but badly implemented, and encounters that sucked and shouldn't be replicated. Now, my favorite boss fight out of the whole entire event is the one in the second Redux mission called the Spark. Most of the mission is very simple and boring, nothing really changes, and all the event is the same except for, like, harder enemies, until I reach the boss fight. At first it looked like it was just going to be the same served boss fight we fought a million times in public events, but with no immune period. However, my opinion changed quickly when I killed the boss and it split into several small baby servitors. So being the horrible monster that I am, I killed all the baby servitors, and then they split into more baby servitors, and then I killed all of those ones and they split even more until I just killed all of them. There's like nothing left. And I really enjoyed that boss fight. When I was with my friend, it was just amazing. Like, it was a really enjoyable boss fight. And Bungie, this boss mechanic is so good. I loved it so much. It was so much fun. Like, when I was playing with my friend and we got to that part where the server split up into a little version of itself, it surprised me when it happened. One, because it's just a surprising boss mechanic in the first place, very unexpected, and usually mechanics like that in any game will be surprising you. The other reason is that we thought there wasn't going to be a mechanic at all, and we thought it was just going to be a normal servitor sponge boss, the one we've seen 1,000 times. But when it did happen, we were pleasantly surprised. In Bungie, we shouldn't feel surprised to see that there is a boss mechanic in one of your missions. Our expectations should have been set that low. Like, it wasn't even that good of a concept. It's just a boss fight that when you kill it, he makes a lot more mini bosses that you need to shoot. It's still just a lot of shooting, but that is a lot more fun when compared to a sponge boss. And that tiny change completely changes my and most people's enjoyment of this mission, which is kind of sad because the smallest improvement can make a massive difference to the enjoyment of this mission. Which, as we can all agree, is sad. We just want these boss fights to be enjoyable. We want them to test our skill and not our endurance. And Bungie, you fucked up when a little change like this can make such a difference. Like, as I said, it's not hard to implement these little boss mechanics into some bosses in specific missions. Like, we've already seen that you can do it. In some of the newer missions and some of the campaigns, we've seen that you are slowly changing them. But it's not enough because we're all getting sick of sponge bosses. The Destiny 1 was filled with sponge bosses, and we're already sick of that. But then you go to the next game, and there's still more sponge bosses. Like, most of the community is over sponge bosses. And now, I'm not saying that we should get rid of sponge bosses, because, they are needed. Like, a sponge boss is kind of a mechanic, but reusing the same old mechanic constantly, it's just too much. We need new stuff to come in. I feel like maybe only having a couple sponge bosses for like the really easy simple bosses that don't really need a mechanic. Keep those ones. But you should really pump out in the next couple DLC content drops. Just give them more mechanics. It's not that hard. And after a while, once you get used to it and get bored of all these new mechanics, you can probably bring in a couple more sponge bosses. But we just need new mechanics in these boss fights. That's all we want. Just please Bungie.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us.
I hate the Redux mission 1AU because it's such a boring chore for most of the mission, with nothing different except for the one encounter where you need to travel on the outside of the ship. But because the sun is right next to the ship, you can't be out of cover for too long because you will die because of the heat. So you have to travel from cover to cover, trying not to die. Now in the normal encounter, there would be like 4 enemies, but in the Redux mission, they dial this up, they dial the enemies to like 20. It's like a military assault on your position. It's crazy. And at parts, it was fun, but it was also at times very time consuming, especially in solo. Like, fuck, doing it in solo took so many tries for me to complete, but I got through it eventually. However, I shouldn't have to spend like 5 minutes or more on an encounter like this, and I think the reason that it was so time consuming is because there was so little cover. So for most of the battle, you stay at the back shooting enemies, and then when you're done with killing those enemies, you would run down and activate the next wave of enemies, run all the way back, and then rinse and repeat. Now that isn't really that fun, because you were just sitting at the back and shooting enemies, and it is at points it's just so boring and monotonous. And it shits me because there's an easy fix for this, which is to make the boards coming out of the surface of the ship give you a little bit more cover. And to do that, probably make the boards themselves maybe a little bigger and come out like just a little bit more, so they give you more shade to hide in. But overall, this little encounter, it's a good idea, but badly implemented. I don't want to talk about the Chosen Redux mission. It's just so bad. There's nothing new. It's just the same stuff but harder. It's so boring. I hate the mission so much. Like the final boss fight for Destiny 2 campaign, redone for the special event. And you know what they do? They keep everything nearly the same, except that Gaul doesn't have gaps between his super. That is just bullshit. This is the last Redux mission that has, and the last chance to physically show us that they have changed, and they give us this utter bullshit. I would normally give ways to fix this, because I personally believe if you are stating a problem, you should at least give some ways to fix it. But this is so shit. Like, anything would make it better. So I'm not going to say anything about it. Bungie, just, you know this is wrong, you know this is dumb, just fix it. Now in conclusion, the Redux missions were a missed opportunity in most facets, being unexpired, boring and lazy. And it's just sad to see this chance to recap some of the missions seen in the Destiny 2 campaign and fix escalating problems, giving these missions another chance, as well as showing the community that Bungie has changed and not just say they have. But of course, Bungie does no such thing. Now I do partly excuse the live team for doing this, as I said they have a lot on their plate. However, I would recommend that you be wary when entering Forsaken, as Bungie has dropped the ball on this one, which could be a sign of how oily their fingers are. The end of the video. Now, as I said, I have split the video into two parts. This part is just for the Redux mission. The next part is for like Eververse, the weapon armor sets, and all that kind of stuff. I will be like discussing Eververse and all that kind of stuff in that video. Sorry I had to split it up. I just spent a lot of time. Well, again, it wasn't a lot of time, but I did spend all the time I have on making the script, and I can't get this video out before Summer Solstice ends. So let's get this half out, and then see how it goes, and then I'll probably release the second part later on. But yeah, if you like this video, if you liked my whole entire what I said, my discussion, yeah, like the video. If you disliked anything I said, like maybe I spoke really fast, well, I did speak really fast, but if you didn't like that, dislike the video, go in the comments and tell me why why you disliked the video, because honestly, it's just annoying whenever I see a dislike and no one tells me why they don't like the video. It's because like, how am I supposed to be a better person if you don't tell me how? Again, if you just like hate this video and you just want to go in the comments and say, oh, you fucking suck, please, this is a big dick move. If you're gonna go in the comments and you tell me why you dislike me, just be civil about it. But yeah, thank you for watching my video. Thank you for spending time thank you for taking time out of your day to watch my terrible videos. And yeah, see ya.